Good morning, everybody. Natalie coming to you live. Spirit and coffee. Got my coffee here, of course. Cheers, salud. Yes, I'm a Slytherin. um, Proud of it. Proud Slytherin. It has been a hot minute since I've done Spirit and Coffee, and it's been a long while since I've done Spirit and Coffee on my personal Facebook page. And I the this is interesting. I want to sort of talk about what I'm going through and how it may help your life, hopefully, because as you guys know, this is the practical use of esoteric wisdom, spiritual alchemy. Of course, all people of all walks of life, of all religion, of everyone is welcome to this. And it's about you and your personal connection to God or to the universe or to whatever it is that you believe, and for the betterment of humanity. So I have literally had almost a huge mental breakdown, right? Where you just think you're crazy, you think you're going to lose it. And that's sort of what's happened with me. And trying to figure out where do I find myself in the storyline of what's going on in today's society, in today's world. Where do I fit? What does my story say about me? Who am I? Back to like the base, basic foundations. Um, in alchemy, we call this the fool, right? The fool is sort of like feeling lost in the world, not 100% sure where they are, what the story is, and how the storyline and the plot has, changed. So sort of chaotic. I was really good morning. I don't know who that is, but good morning to whoever's on here. It was hard for me to get on these last couple of days. And typically I'm vocal, right? As you guys know, especially people who followed me for a while or just follow my favorite. You guys know I'm a vocal person. I like to communicate, I like to talk, I like to teach, I like to support, I like to serve. I'm here to serve humanity. That's what I'm here to do. And I literally had no words. I just couldn't even, I had nothing left to give. Totally felt drained. And even this morning, it was very hard for me to get on. But of course, God told me that I have to. So I said, okay, I'll do whatever you tell me to do. And it took me a long time. I was crying before I got on here, just trying to figure out my life. So here's what I'm going to hopefully give today, and hopefully people that need to hear the message will. There are different parts of initiation in our life. And I can tell you that for the longest time, good morning, Rick, I was wondering, what does initiation truly mean? And have I ever gone through initiation? And what is it? And so for me, I sort of felt like initiation meant that these elder people were going to show up at my door and take me away. And I had this fantasy since I was a child, a little girl. I thought that these people were going to show up and say, okay, we're taking you away. We're going to teach you, God's word completely. We're going to show you the esoterics, the mysteries, the mystics, all this, right? All this work, right? And that's what I had hoped for my whole life. And of course, no one ever showed up at my door. So I couldn't really understand initiation. I started to, of course, to do research, looking into, especially the Masonic stuff, because they do initiation, rites of passage, all this stuff. Started looking into native cultures and rites of passage, and thinking, well, I don't really have anybody to help me through what an initiation would look like. So have I ever had one? So the journey that I've been going on, and the reason why there's so much going on with me, is that I started to take shamanic traditions. It's a course that I'm taking this semester. Good morning, Nikumu. Sorry, I've probably seen that wrong, but good morning. And I started to take the shamanic traditions class. Now, shamanic traditions, like people may not 100% understand who the shamanic people were, right? And they came from Siberia. They think they came from India, then traveled to Russia, and they were in the Arctic. Tungunis people. Good morning, Chad. So really, there's only one tribe that are called shaman, and then we just have labeled, everybody shaman, right? Yes, enjoy the coffee and big hug. Um, so not every spiritual practice is shamanic tradition, right? Anywho, that right there, though, if you do start to look at shamanic traditions or your rites of passage or who you are in this place and space, start to do your historical research, your ancestry, go back in time, right? Good morning, Mario. And so I started to do this, right? I was kind of, my aunt had done one side of my family, but my grandmother was a person that I was wanting to really understand. So started to go back. Well, as I started to journey into the past, right, there was a huge unraveling of the future, of the people in my life, of the characters in my life, of the people that I engage with. And I'm talking about characters like our relationships with the people that we love, and that relationships that we're close to, people that we're close to, right, started to shift and change. And I didn't understand, what was going to happen. I'm just going through, I'm trusting God, I'm trusting the universe, I'm going through a process, and boom, things started to shift instantaneously. The plot, good morning, Fred, the plot line, the storyline completely shifted in a way that I could never have anticipated, right? You start to see the characters from a different space, place, light. And in other words, the people that you thought maybe were good for you end up being the ones who were holding you back the entire time from truly spreading your wings and flying. It's almost like a plot twist, right? It's almost like your eyes open up, and I don't know if this has ever happened to you, but you have people around you, and all of a sudden the truth is revealed, and you're like, whoa, I did not see that plot coming. It's kind of like when you watch a movie, right? Some of them are predictable, but then there are some movies where you're like, whoa, that I didn't expect that plot twist. And then you're like, wow, this whole time I was thinking that, this is what was holding the person back, or this, and then boom, your eyes open. And it's the people we love the most, right? Family. And family is the hardest program to get through. It's the hardest one, and it's our greatest initiation, and it's the greatest opportunity for us to have a rites of passage, which I'm going through at this point, which made it super hard for me to even get on here, right? Again, um, thinking about who am I, right? And really, who am I? Understanding that the personality or the stuff that has arose within me to sort of make me who I am as an individual, asking yourself, right? Who are you? And it's ever changing. It's not the same every day, right? Um, and Alice in Wonderland, I always reference that because, you have Epsilon who's always like, who are you? And that's what he's asking, who are you? And it's like, I can't know. I change every day. I'm somebody different daily, right? Or every second I'm changing. There's some core things within me. Now, the core of who we are, and as I'm starting to understand, as I'm going to the Jungian, sort of the psychology, the Jungian psychology, where he sort of looks at the archetypal patterns that arise within the collective, right? And it's like, wow, I said, who am I in this storyline? The very fabric of who we are, can't speak, blah, can't spoke. The very fabric of who we are is a collective of all of the things that we have learned throughout our time. So our parents are a big part of that, right? Our parents teach us. Hopefully, if you had your parents there, but if you didn't, you had an elder or somebody who taught you something. Um, or you wouldn't be alive, right? We have to have people feed us and stuff when we're kids. So that is sort of like what I call the Frankenstein. Like, I'm thinking we have sort of weaved and put together the pattern of ourself in the quilt, right, of life that we've sort of constructed and sort of put together ourselves in the patterns of the people around us. And I feel like this is like Frankenstein. We're like Frankenstein's, right? We have all these patchwork, right? Unless you came from a tribe where you had this historical lineage where they passed down and they had rites of passage and all this. Most people don't, especially in America. And so, if that's the case, you were sort of put together by what you were taught, and now you're an adult. Okay, now when you go through a rites of passage, right, or you go through an initiation, especially when it's into personality, like a formation of the new personality, stepping in closer to who we are, right, in our godliness, in our divine birthright. Again, Spirit and Coffee is all about that. How do we get a little bit closer to who we authentically are? And we just a little at a time, right? We're just a little bit at a time. We're saying, how do we get to who we are completely, fully in our God self, right? And that we can then become servants of God or serve the universe, and it serves us back, right? It's this ebb and flow that comes and goes. So we start to form a new identity that's closer to who we are. But in order to do that, right? Good morning, Anthony. We have to untangle the personality that we thought we were prior, which is kind of hard, right? Because you're thinking about all of the history and the trauma and what happened with the ancestors, and we're looking back to the elders. And this right here is probably one of the hardest things to go through. I mean, literally thought I was going to have a mental breakdown where I just was like, I don't even know if I could do it. I thought I was going to be crazy. Good morning, Trey Strong. I mean, I'm already crazy, but I mean, I really thought I was going to like go end up in a loony house because I couldn't do, I mean, I couldn't handle it. It was a complete overload and overwhelm, and I didn't know where to place it. Also, it was emotional, right? Good morning, Lisa. There was an emotional state that arose within me. That emotion is uncomfortable, especially if you're a person who's rational and logical. To step into the emotional, chaotic part of life is not easy. How do you find your way out of the chaos? How do you start to understand and articulate the experience of that emotional state where it feels like everything's falling apart and nothing is ever going to be the same? And how do you start to collect the pieces to reconstruct? It's almost, choose a trunk, choose a trunk, choose strong. Okay. I like choose a strong, choose a chunk, whatever it is. But yeah, good morning to you. Let me see. Okay. So we start to reconstruct ourselves, devouring the very thought of who we were or are, and we let go. Too early, no coffee yet. Oh, okay. Well, I'm a coffee. I should probably. I've tried. I don't think I'll ever quit coffee. Maybe I will. I don't think so. This is Spirit and Coffee, so I guess I couldn't do that, right? Because then I wouldn't be authentically me. I had mine. Oh, awesome. Awesome, Swan. So you guys, I would love for you guys to share, are you guys going through a rite of passage, of an initiation where you feel like everything, the very fabric of who you are is starting to unwind, untangle, come apart, and you're starting to reconstruct your life? I mean, for me, I've done it several times. I always tell people I intentionally have devoured my life a million times to reconstruct it. This time it's different. It's different because the characters in my life that I have to let go and cut off in order to take the next step of my life are the people that I never thought I'd have to, or that I never would. But I can't grow, right? Good morning, PPG. I can't grow until I do this. And so those people, right, are people that I love dearly. I love them. and I just can't do it. I just can't do it. And the plot twist and understanding the psychology of what they've done, right? Now that I'm aware, I if I go back, then I'm the one who's setting myself up for failure. So I have to be able to let go, right, of these people so that I can grow into the new version of me. Not easy. And I talk about letting go all the time. It's easy, but when it's somebody that you're super close to, right, like parents, that you've loved and been very close to your entire life. And finally, you realize the psychology behind what has been going on. And then, boom, you're like, oh my God, this has been holding me back from me living into my greater self, living into the very, I want to say a little bit closer to my godly self, right? As close as I can possibly get, right? I want to be as close to God as I can possibly get. And, I know God is always with us. So they would say, well, God is within you. And there's that thought process. But to be godly in a three-dimensional time space it's hard. And they call it, so I'm trying to understand from the Jungian perspective, right? So that I can support people here on this this planet with language that can describe it. It's taking the ego and taking the self with the capital S, and it's finding the integrity between the two. Now, Jung or Jungian thought process was that our dream state is the closest thing to who we are. Okay, so I'm going to start really researching Jungian. I have the Red Book, which is a book if you guys want to understand what he went through. You guys can read the Red Book, and it just talks about, I think, the dreams, like our dream world, right? New on here and starting a similar topic channel, just checking out other podcasts, randomly picked yours, love it, subscribed, just getting tips. I'm brand new. Thanks. I'll check in on you. Oh, awesome. That's amazing. Congratulations that you're starting your own. Yes. I love that book, Feel the Fear. Anyway, that's awesome. Yeah, it's really good. And I think we need more individuals, right, to be teaching the work because everybody has different language. And it's funny, I was talking to my sister yesterday, and she's like, because she's always like, Natalie, why are you like, she doesn't understand why I do what I do, right? And I told her, because I'm here to serve. I'm here to give back to humanity. I'm here to support humanity. That's I'm here to leave a legacy of wisdom. That is the legacy that I will leave behind. And I have to understand language so I could communicate to people what's going on, and so that they have language. And so she was like, yeah, that's what I get now. I understand that you're doing it because you need the language. And I do, because there are things that we don't have words for. We try to describe them, we try to explain them, but the way that you're experiencing it may be different, is going to be different from mine. I don't know what you're experiencing. I'm not living in your body, but I can give you language that might describe, right? I think I was talking to my professor and she was just saying stuff that was like, wow. I was like, yes, that's the language I need. It's the patterns that we're recreating the patterns in our personality type, right? True, we live in an infinite world. Yeah. Blogger, I want to be a writer. Oh, amazing. You should write. Yes. And higher subconscious being. Yes. And that's what I do. I support people into their divine purpose and divine right. And what does that mean for you, right? We are in a physical shell. I wrote quotes. Oh, nice. I love that. And that's amazing. So getting closer to who we are, right, is the point. And some people, it's like people believe in reincarnation and stuff. And for me, I think, well, those are the people that maybe they didn't get it this time. They didn't truly live into their full potential because, they didn't get the lessons, or they didn't understand the lessons. And so they'll come back and repeat it until they say, oh yeah, that's right. I get to be my God self. And what does that look like in the world? Well, maybe it looks like a writer. Maybe it looks like starting my own podcast. Maybe it looks like dreams. So I think I'm going to start working with dreams, my dreams. Um, why? Because according to Jung, right, our dreams are our closest to ourself because they come from internally us. And when we could bridge the gap between the dream, the subconscious, and the conscious mind, when we could bridge the gap. Now, here's the deal. I've understood who I am from a stellar level on my stellar body, and I understand who I am in the ego, personality wise. Now, understanding the subconscious mind, which is the, maybe we could call it the underworld, our shadow side, right? The parts of us that don't want to be seen. I want that too. Let's see. I have bad ones since my mom died. Oh, there is separation period during our sleep. Yes. And the thing with me is I'm a big dreamer. Now here's the deal. I dream every night and I remember my dream every day. Never, ever without fail. I've never not remembered, ever. And so when I started to analyze my dreams recently, I didn't ever want to because I was like, some people are like, ooh, it'd be cool. And I'm like, it's not because it's a lot. I'm processing a whole lot in my sleep. And to try to process it in my waking life would be too much. But understanding the subconscious and the underworld and the subconscious mind, and then bridging the gap between the conscious mind, and then understanding who we are at the stellar level, right? And creating all of those. So the underworld, the ego, and the stellar body. Okay. Underworld being our subconscious mind, our ego being our conscious mind, and our stellar body being our higher self or the over self or whatever, however you want to call it. That if we can align those, now in my models before, I had the integrity of the body, the mind, the spirit, but not the underworld. And I completely was missing out on that piece. Okay. Dreams tell you things you can focus and retune our minds to make decisions in our waking world. Yeah. And there's so many, right or wrong, yes. And there's so many other ways that we can look at dreams. I'm reading a book called Integral Dreaming. I'm taking a course right now called The Consciousness of Sleep and Dreams. And the professor that I'm working with does dream work. And hey, Poetic, how are you? Been a long time, girl. And the dream world, there's several different ways to look at dreams. In fact, there's not one way. And they can mean different things in different ways. I do know that the untangling of the subconscious, so there's the collective conscious, subconscious, and then there's, I guess, your conscious. But I think that understanding how it works for you, the subconscious is crazy in dreams. Yeah. And so for me, I'm looking to work with dreams. And who knows, that could be the direction that I go in. It could be my medicine. I'm not 100% sure at this point. But I do know that when I choose, especially when I enter my PhD, I'm going to choose boldly and for the betterment of what humanity. But as we do this work, and here's the disclaimer, okay? As the disclaimer, I want you guys to remember that when you start to look into your historical past, when you start to really go back generations and then do dream work and then all these other things, one, you've got to make sure that you have grounding techniques to bring you back, or you will stay stuck in what I call the ether. You don't want to stay stuck there, right? We're here in this time space. Now, that's one. And two, the unintended consequences will never be known. We don't know how it's going to play out, and that's not up to us. But we do know that there will be people that you need to let go of. And as you let go, you're allowing them to grow and you to grow. And if you can see it from that perspective, it becomes easier to let go. because then you're hindering their progression and you're hindering your own. And something that I've really understood. Now we hear it, and I've had this issue with other people, right? Where you're like, yeah, you got to let them go, but never on a level that I'm experiencing it now with people, with my own parents, which is interesting because I've always been the person who was like, oh, I forgive you. And what I did, and I'll just tell you what I did, okay, with my parents, is that and I'll read your comments in just a second. What I did with my parents, is I was always compromising, not both parents, but I would compromise my own morals, morality, and my own integrity. And I have now set boundaries. And because of that, things are starting to shift in a way that I never even imagined. But why? For my own mental well being, I have to take care of me. And if I don't, I will fall apart. I'll fall apart completely, right? And I have already fallen apart. And so that's good, but I won't be able to pull myself back together. So now I'm in the phase of boundaries so I can pull myself back together into a new version of Natalie, into a new version of Kamala, into a new version of Nisha, right? Which are all, now I just need an underground name. I need my somebody kept saying Persephone, but I'm not good. I don't think I'm Persephone's a name that I want to take, a goddess of the underworld, right? So I need my underworld name. So you guys go get your names, right? That's what happens with initiation. And it's kind of funny because I didn't realize my initiation into my stellar body had two names. And now as I descend into the underworld of my subconscious mind, there will be an initiation into a new name, and I'll have like 5 names, and that's okay. Who are you talking to today? Well, Nisha. Who are you talking to tomorrow? Well, Kamala. And who else? I don't know. We'll say Persephone just as a holding space, but I don't think it'll be Persephone. Okay. That's why we are here. We have to do the work. Yes, we're rewiring all the time. Good morning. Hey, cuz, how are you? um, to separate the stress from ourselves. So true. Mine are gone. Oh my God, sounds like me. Okay. Yeah. So we're rewiring all the time. Yes. Continually. And this one's a big one for me. And that's why it's so shocking, right? The story, the plot, the twist, the storyline has shifted in a way that I'm like, whoa, what's going on? Didn't expect this. Um, didn't expect it at all. It's a plot twist and a half. That's what I'm going to say. Um, but again, Frankenstein, which is what I'm calling it, it's like because the way that I see our personalities, our ego, the way that we've sort of it could be like a quilt, but I think Frankenstein is kind of cool. So I've to call myself Frankenstein at this point, where I've just kind of piece myself together with different different things, and I've patched myself up in this way, and now I'm letting it go to repatch myself up in a whole new version. So we shall see what is to come of this new version of Natalie, which who knows, it's just hopefully a better way to serve humanity, right? It's transitioning from one situation, like, yeah, it's a transition for sure. And it was hard because again, parents, I think it's our last step. It's my initiation into full, I think, adulthood. Where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna do me. I need to do what's best for me, and I need to create my life the best for me, and then figure out how I want these characters to be in my life, or if I want them in my life, or how is that gonna look? I don't know. It's to be determined. I've set my boundaries, and if those people choose to be around me, they will. And if they don't, well, I love them and pray for them regardless, right? I'm going to love and pray for the individuals regardless, right? But there has to be a transition, and I have to let go, or I'm going to lose my brains. And that's not good. Definitely don't want to lose my mind. Or maybe I do. I always forgive. Yeah, forgiveness is important. And if you haven't been on here, Swan, I always talk about my secret sauce. My secret sauce, forgiveness. No, yes, forgiveness, gratitude, love. Those three things. Hey, Sandra. Good morning. If you could do forgiveness, gratitude, and love, you're doing just fine. But that doesn't mean that you can't set boundaries, and that's what I'm learning. I have to set boundaries for my own mental well-being and health, um, and then have people respect them. And if they don't, then I can't be in their space, right? So, and that should be for you as well. That just says that you feel like you're worthy, you're enough, and you matter when you do that. When you set boundaries and you stick to them and you don't compromise in principle. Now, remember, I'm going to end with this. We are in a 5-year, and a 5-year is all about the Hierophant. So, if we went in a spiritual alchemy, sort of like through tarot, we could say that the Hierophant lays down the spiritual law and holds the spiritual law. It's also a time of chaos. So fives, the number 5, which the Hierophant represents, is chaos. And so chaos can represent even the sacred feminine in some way, where we end up in a dark space, right? Or we end up in this darkness, right? It can also mean emotion, because, right, 5s are chaos and emotion, where chaos being the sacred feminine, or what we understand as the sacred feminine, which is like this, you know, this emotional state of being, which I'm in. And I don't really understand, especially because I'm more rational. I'm a more rational person. Like my brain goes to rationality before it goes to emotionality. And now I'm in complete emotion and letting my emotions actually um, open up like a floodgate. So really the dam has broke, and I've allowed all of the tears and all of the psychological craziness that the spell, almost like I was under a spell this whole time is what I feel like. And it's been broken. And now I'm ready to step into a fuller version of me, and whatever that means. And through God, because God is leading it, right? I trust God completely, wholly, fully. I wonder how my life path relates to the 5-year, my life path. I don't know. You could be a 5-year. I think if you looked at your birthday, you could look at your number. I don't even remember what my number is, but we are in a year 5-year. Yes. Last year we were in a 4-year, but we were setting foundations. And that's why I said you got to set up your spiritual foundations last year, because this year is going to be crazy. And it is already. Okay. So as I come apart at the seams, I'm going to restitch myself. And I will say this one last thing before I go. God is there for you always. God is always there. So we can talk about these fancy words and stuff, and you could call it the universe, creator, whatever you call it. I say God, very simple for me. That God will, okay, and always will be there when you believe. And when you ask for refuge, okay, the prayer for me, when I'm in a situation where I need to get out and it's not good for me or healthy for me, I pray that God give me refuge to do his work, right? And you could say her work, whatever it is for you, but God, our universe, give me refuge to do the work, to do the great work, to serve humanity, to give back. Because right now in this situation, I can't. And then God, universe, creator, will part mountains, split the sea in order to support you if you do it in the name of God, right? And that's what they meant when they said, do it in the name of God. Well, do it in the name of creator, do it in the name of universe, whatever you call it, right? Like we all have different names for the God, the one God, right? The one that's the creator of all things, our manifester of all things, whatever, however you want to see it. And there's so many different ways and languages, but you guys get the point. So I am in a situation where I'm in a safe space. I had to leave an environment that was very toxic for me, and not good at all. And now I'm in a space that's beautiful, and it happened in a matter of seconds. Why? Because of a belief. And you guys can see this throughout my lifestyle. That's why I go live. Okay, God's love. But I believe that if you help yourself, you get gifts. If you help yourself. I'm not sure what you mean by that, but okay. I left an abusive. Oh, that's great. Yeah, it's setting those boundaries, right? It's understanding that you're worthy and you're enough. And once you do that, then you can ask mental and emotional. Perfect. Well, I'm glad you did that. I'm exiting an emotional, psychological, not good for me situation, and by somebody who I love very dearly. But they probably don't know, or if they do know, which I have told them, and maybe they don't care. That's what I'm getting. That's what I'm starting to think. They know, but they don't care. They couldn't give two shits, and that's okay. It's okay. Forgive and love them no matter what. I've got to do what's right for me, and that's it. End of story. So do what's right for you, especially if it's compromising your mental health. So I love you guys. Have the most magical, fantastical day ever. And I'm going to get on tomorrow because God's telling me that I better get on. Yes, God. Okay, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it. I cried this morning getting on. It was very hard for me, and I nearly have never skipped a day in 3 years. I think in the matter of 3 years, maybe 3 weeks at most. What I mean is help yourself. You must follow yes, help yourself. Got it. Yes. All love. Reach out. Yeah. Reach out if you need. Thank you, Poetic. I appreciate that. I know I was just in a place where I was like, whoa, but it's crazy. It all happened really quick if you didn't notice. That's how fast life happens. It goes boom, and then you're like, whoa, what the heck just happened? Um, so there you go. I love you guys, and I'll be seeing you guys tomorrow. Hopefully this was helpful, and many kisses, besitos, and love, and kindness, and compassion, and treat yourself good. Okay, love you guys, and for you on the podcast, if you guys want to call in, I'll take a caller. I stay on the podcast, Podbean podcast. So you guys, if anybody wants to call in, you guys are welcome now to call in. I do live coaching a little bit if people are interested. And I do live coaching just to kind of support so that you guys get a little bit of clarity around something. Can't do a whole lot with one session, but can do a lot with one session, if that makes sense. Good morning, Mel. Coaching, even in one session, sometimes is enough, right? It's enough to get you kind of jolted in the right direction. So I offer that up, and I wait a little bit, and then if you guys choose to, cool. If not, cool. Again, I'm here as a resource to support. Oh, Al. I love it. Yeah. So yeah, Poetic, I think with your birthday, find out if you're a 5-year, and then look up fives. But if you looked at it again from the tarot, it is the Hierophant. And the Hierophant is, again, the Pope holds the spiritual laws. So there's dispensationalism, which is kind of like God's administration. And if you looked up, like in history, they've done like this chart about how the administration of God has showed up through spiritually over time. And so we've had kings, right? That's one way. And then we've had, like what we have now, which is democracy. I don't even know. Capitalism, I guess, which is so far away, right, from what spiritual law is intended to do. So how do we administer the spiritual laws? And that's kind of the question that we're in when we're in 5. But 5 also represents, again, chaos. And then we know that 6 is choice, right? So we step into the Lovers, which is the next part of tarot. Most people think Lovers is about, lovers coming together. It's about choice. Actually, we get to choose which path we want to take. Okay. Oh, you're an 8. So here's the interesting thing about 8, and I don't know if you know this. 8 and 11, 8 being strength, 11 being justice. But in Aleister Crowley changed it in his deck. And he said that 8 was justice and 11 was strength. So kind of look at that. I mean, you can go two different ways. It depends on what, kind of what deck you're using. But Aleister Crowley is the only one, and he has a whole reason why. And if you read the Book of Thought, that book is really it's kind of hard to get through. But it tells you why he did it, and I've tried to sort of understand why he would say that 8 was, justice rather than strength. And it made sense in some ways, only because we balance, right? On justice, there's the balance beams, and then we have 4 and 4 on each side, which would be the balance. But we have 11, then, where's the balance? Or is it, 5 and 5, and then the middle one is sort of the balance? I don't know. So from numerology, I was trying to think about how would justice be, and I kind of agreed with Aleister Crowley at some point, and then I didn't. So I've kind of gone back and forth with this, which is an interesting dynamic. But if you look at tarot, 8 is strength, and in the Rider-Waite deck, you'll see the very, very foundational deck. You'll see him holding the lion's mouth open, or see her holding the lion's mouth open, which symbolizes the strength to hold the ego, right? To gently pat the ego. We don't have to use the ego, because ego can then represent pride, right? And pride in a way that's not good. I wouldn't say that's not good, but is self-serving, I should say. And then we have, when we look at strength, or we look at the ego and how does it work, it also is that fire energy with the staff. So wands can be represented by that fire energy. So it goes into a lot. And so, you might want to look at that. And then 5, again, if 5's coming up for you, you may want to ask why. And kind of dig a little deeper into that. But 8 itself is if you looked at it, it's like infinity, right? It's like this infinite flow. So there's a lot. Of course, there's a way more to all that. But 8 representing, and it could represent kind of like the Leo in some ways too. When we see the fire energy is like a, the Leo energy. So working with fire, and understanding the fire, and then understanding how to hold the staff, right? Fire energy is really a complex energy to work with. So strength, and that's why it takes that strength to like burn up, because then you could talk about the phoenix, the rise and fall of the phoenix. But it's just being able to pet the ego and tame the ego in some ways. That's kind of how the card is represented. So, yeah. Good morning, Dark Vader. I'm Baby Yoda. And it's not Grogu, whatever. Ego is so important. It is important. Life's path stuff. Yes, of course. Yeah, I'm Baby Yoda for sure. For sure. So fun. I know. It is fun. And talking about the tarot is amazing, because I don't think people really understand the dynamics of the alchemy behind it. They and it was taken away for a reason, obviously, because they didn't want people to understand the process, which is the spiritual alchemic process. Okay. And it allows us, right, to at least put some context into what we're experiencing in the world. Some kind of an understanding on it, right, where we could think about it, right? We're like, oh yeah, okay, now I can feel it and I can see it, but now here's the language to communicate it, right? Here's how I can describe it if I wanted to describe it. Yeah, if we empower, then they cannot be controlled. Exactly. And if we know who we are, right? If you know who you are. And it's kind of funny because I was talking about the rites of passage, right? And I'll end here unless somebody wants to call in, but the rites of passage and initiation, which I'm finally understanding kind of. We're always a beginner, right? Like I'm always the full. So if we go into tarot, I'm always the full card. I'm always like, what? We're just, you could never know it all, right? Um, I really wanted to understand initiation. And I think for the first time, I understand it experientially, completely experientially than I did before. I mean, I kind of understood it as a like in context with conceptually, and I was like, sort of understand what this is. But do I really understand what initiation is? Now, again, we can talk about these things, but it doesn't matter if we're not experiencing them, right? It's the experience that we get to communicate. So being closer to our authentic self is being able to communicate the experiences we're having, right? And articulate them so that we can leave it behind, so people can understand. So there's clarity. And when there's clarity, then there's things show up in your life. That's why masters are masters. That's why you have masters, not because they're better or different than you. It's because they're faster at this understanding. The process is faster for them. They understand what initiation means. They understand the process to go through initiation. They understand what's needed in order to grow and transcend. They get it. They've been through it enough times that they're like, okay, I understand it's kind of like thinking. I was doing Excel spreadsheets the other day, and I'm like, oh yeah, well, I'm really good at them now. When I first started, I sucked, but now I can create databases. Why? Because I've practiced it. So I can do, if somebody new came, they'd be like, what are you doing? I don't get it. I'm taking Kung Fu, right? I just got my blue belt. Congratulations, Natalie. Yay. And in my Kung Fu practice, you can't get to black belt. I mean, I can barely do, there's so much I would never learn it all. You'll never learn all Kung Fu even if you started as a child, there's so much. And I'm like, oh my God, there's more and more and more and more and more and more and more. There's always something, right? And each thing that we learn is just another tool to help us communicate and articulate the experience and get clearer. And as we build upon that information, we start to get stronger in the foundational stuff. That's why the foundational stuff is critical. People want to jump to spiritual enlightenment. There's no such thing. You don't just jump and leap to spiritual enlightenment. We always are beginners. And the people that say they're enlightened fall back into beginner because it's not the truth. The truth is we're always going through initiation. That's part of life. It's part of this particular time space. And in that initiation, which I'm getting, is really these big life events that happen that really change the fabric of who we are as a person. We come out as this new individual. It's almost like a baptism, right? Or life and death of the phoenix, where some part of us dies so that we can rebirth something new. I got it conceptually and it sounds good, but I'm actually understanding it now experientially on a bigger level because of what I'm going through. And I'm like, whoa, this is crazy to truly embody it and experience it and really let it land. Let it land in you. So if you're working on something, okay, and I know you guys have, sorry, it's my keypad. Oh, predict, no worries. Energy. It's okay. Don't worry. You have to. I can't spell here in Ireland. Oh, you're in Ireland? Oh, sorry. I just got scroll. So, so as we get better at it and as we go through the process and as we truly embody it, and I'll say this before I go about Ireland, because I think I have ancestors there. I think I was from Ireland, a part of my family, but I haven't done DNA yet, but I think so. That if you were, let's say you were working on authenticity for yourself and you know the word conceptually and you kind of understand what it means, but have you really landed it? Have you really landed what authenticity means for you? Really? in the body. Like, yeah, kind of like I'm authentic. Like I say what I feel and I'm taking personal responsibility for my stuff. And, I'm creating a more authentic version of myself. Yeah. And then all of a sudden something opens up and you truly feel it, like you land it. That's what I'm saying. Be with it. Be with the things that you're working on completely, fully, wholly. It's going to change. It's not going to stay the same. Just when you're like, oh, yeah, I totally got authenticity. I got it. And then boom, something else shifts. And you're like, whoa, that's a whole nother part of authenticity. I didn't even realize. Like, whoa, or someone says something different, or they talk about authenticity in a different way. And you're like, oh my God, that makes total sense. And something clicks inside you, right? And then this whole new experience explodes. And before you know it, you're this whole new version of authenticity. So let it land. Okay, let it land for you. I knew what initiation was, but I really didn't. I kept asking myself, I kept saying, what is this thing? I don't even really know if I've ever been through it. And have I been through it? And did I do it for myself? Or do people need to do it for me? And I was totally confused. Now I've embodied it and I'm going through an initiation and I'm letting it land. What does it mean? What does it feel like? Right? How am I experiencing it? What is it doing for me to see the world differently? How do I engage now? Am I engaging with things differently? Am I moving through the world differently because of this? So ask yourself those questions, okay? Um, Living in the country. So originally from Dublin. Awesome. Yeah, I've been doing some of my lineage, and I think, and I don't know, but I have the name Seayc through my grandma, which is interesting because I'm from New Mexico. I always thought, yeah, I'm just, we're probably native or, and Mexican and whatever we have in our blood. And then finally found out that my biological grandfather was C, which then they came from England, but it says that the name first derived in Ireland. So I think I might be Irish. Kind of cool. I like that. Just a part of myself I didn't really know was there. So, um, anywho, so thank you guys for engaging. Thank you for showing up. If you're working with a concept, an embodiment of a concept, again, be with it. Okay. Be with it. Ask yourself, am I experiencing it fully? Am I embodying it? Or am I just talking about it like I know it? That just because you know it conceptually doesn't mean you understand it wisdom wise, right? To truly allow yourself to go through it, truly embody it, truly allow yourself to go through the full enjoyment and maybe even the hurt or whatever shows up through the process of a particular concept, okay? Are you on YouTube? I am on, I was doing a live streaming. So yes, I have a YouTube channel. And I don't know how well that's kept up. And I do Facebook lives. And today I did it on my personal page, kind of try to go back to the roots of this again because it's been crazy. But yeah, I do. And my website's coming up soon, guys. I can't wait for that to happen. Then I can have a space where everything will exist. And then I'm going to be putting up courses. Coursework is going to be very, 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 very simple. It's more like how do you manage your time and overwhelm? How do you create more time for your life using these principles? But very kind of, practical, just very surface practical stuff. The deeper stuff, I don't know that I would ever put it on. That would be working individually with individuals, I think. Good morning, King. Um, so, in the future, if people really wanted to dive deeper into this work and do experiential work, I would only do that probably in person, perhaps not necessarily online in a course. Good morning and good morning to everybody. I love that. Thanks, King. And we're actually wrapping it up. But so I just want to say a quick prayer and I'm going to use God. So whatever you pray, however you pray, everybody, again, it's spiritual alchemy. I'll use the word God. You could just replace it with whatever you want. But may God place his mighty love, compassion, grace upon you all. And if there's anything weighing on your heart, that you find refuge and passage, and that the gates open up so that you can see the clarity, or the clouds part so that you can see the light shining, and that a way is made for you, a safe passage into your fuller, authentic self, nudging a little closer to your God self, allowing yourself to be peaceful, harmonious, joyful. And if you're going through anything that's trying or hurtful or hard, knowing that God, creator, the universe, is with you to guide you. All you need to do is call and believe, right? Faith. So there you go. Prayers, love, light to you guys all. And you know what? Just keep going. You guys are doing good. And I love you guys very much. And have a very fantastical day. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye bye.